Welcome back. We are in the second half of our finals day at Youth Boulder Nationals 2020. Pete, I got my name wrong.
Oh, that's a bad start.
It is a bad start. Pete Wood's here with Allison Vest. Allison, we had a wonderful round this morning. The Youth B athletes climbed this morning. This afternoon we have the Junior and the Youth A athletes. In general, we can expect more of the same. Good climbing, slightly older climbers, slightly more seasoned competitors in some regards. Any quick takeaways from this morning's round that stuck out for you?
I think this morning's round was really good. It sort of was, I think the setters are really happy with it. I talked to Simon Parton afterwards. There was really nothing he would change. All the boulders got topped, and nobody topped all of them. So it was really exciting, and I'm sure this round will be just as exciting. The Youth A's and Juniors make up a good amount of our open field here in Canada, so they're no slouches when it comes to hard rock climbing, so it should be a good show.
Absolutely, and we're going to have a little bit more excitement on the wall this time. We're running the junior category and the youth A category at the same time. So we're going to have 4 climbers on the wall instead of 2, and then we're going to run them across the gym. So they're going to be sharing boulders, so you're going to see a little bit of that. Sometimes you're going to have men and women on the same boulder, and sometimes you're going to have different age categories on the same boulder. So really interesting when it comes to the route setting, when you realize that you have to have categories climb on the same boulders and you're looking at different skill sets across those groups. But these guys are seasoned professionals. They've put on a bunch of really good boulders to this point, and I expect nothing less in this round of the finals than top quality boulders similar from this morning. So we walked around and we looked at them all. There are some really good looking boulders down here. We'll get you to those just after they're going through the preview. You guys are in for a treat for sure in terms of watching the climbing. Finals boulders tend to be a little bit showy.
Yeah, absolutely. There's at least one of them that is maybe not as pretty looking and looks a little bit more nasty than pretty, but our route setting team, and especially a round set by Simon Parton, does a really excellent job of sort of finding that balance between showy moves and ones that aren't as showy but are just straight up hard.
Yeah, absolutely, and making use of all the angles in this gym. This is one of the steeper gyms, a lot of changing angles, a lot of sort of deep caves and coming out. So there's some really steep options in here, and you were saying earlier this morning, Simon is a master at turning any angle into a technical angle. So you're going to have slab-like technical movement on walls that aren't necessarily what your typical slab would look like. So we are about less than 5 minutes away from the start of the round. The athletes will come out and do their introduction. They'll do their preview of the boulders, which will be kind of a moving chaos down there with 4 groups of climbers moving back and forth. They get 2 minutes to preview the boulders, and then after that we're going to get rolling. So we're here at the Hive, North Shore, Vancouver, and these guys have been putting on comps for off and on for quite a long time, many years. They hosted Open Nationals quite a few years ago, becoming one of the older facilities in the country, but still really, really good bouldering walls.
Yeah, I believe this is their 3rd national championship they've hosted. They've hosted Open once, Youth one time previously, so this is their 2nd Youth National Championship. This gym was designed to have a super nice layout for spectators and climbers alike. There's a lot of great angles and spaces for the route setters to work with, and yeah, I think the Hive is just really excited that everybody could come out and be back for another great Hive comp.
Yeah, so we thank them. We thank the MEC, of course, and Flash, who are the title sponsors of the event. And we're going to get down to the introductions, move on to previews of the boulders, and then we are going to get into the finals. Youth A and Junior, stick with us. We're going to have a good time.
Let's do it.
All right. All right, so we're going to run through, they're bringing them out on the floor. They're wasting no time out here. We'll run through the introductions for you. Starting with, let's start with the juniors.
All right, you bet. So for the junior girls, coming out first, we'll have Ruby Tenen, followed by Agatha Farrell, then Yinky Ying, Brielle Zacharias, Megan Bokenfor, and finally our first place qualifier for the junior girls is Paige Boklaschuk. For the junior boys, we have coming out first Phelan Schaefer, then Ben Agro, Man Ellis, Kinder McNamee, Zach Richardson, and your first place qualifier for the junior males is Guy McNamee.
Fantastic. On the Youth A side, the Youth A girls, your first climber coming out is going to be Tula Shurkat, followed by Riley Galloway, Matea Vukojevic. Then you're going to have Michaela Sky Kochi, otherwise known as Mackie. You have Sydney Park. And then your top qualifier on the Youth A side, Lily Trottier. On the Youth A boys, you've got Hugo Dorval. Then you're going to have Hugo Valence, Brennan Doyle, Victor Baudrin, Jackson McDonald, and your top qualifier from yesterday on the Youth A boys is going to be Ethan Hoffman. So some very, very strong climbers. As you were just mentioning a moment ago, our open circuit comprises quite a few of these athletes on a regular basis.
Well, absolutely. I mean, if you look at the junior boys category, your first place qualifier from the semifinal round, Guy, just won Open National Championships last month, and the second place athlete from semifinals, Zach Richardson, won in the 2019 season. So you have this year's Open National Champion and last year's Open National Champion going head-to-head in a youth category, which I think in itself speaks volumes to the level of ability in this category.
Absolutely, and you have a few little points of note. Lily Trottier, who's your top semifinalist coming into the Youth A finals, was in 20th place. So she, as we say, snuck in to semifinals and then just turned on the jets. Topped 3 boulders in her semifinal round. Only her and Sydney topped 3 boulders out of that round. So she just came out swinging and went, there's no way I should have been in 20th. Watch me go.
Yeah, well, her coach is Jason Hollowatch they're both obviously from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and Jay is a seasoned competitor himself, and he said her mindset coming into that round was just about as good as you can get. You sneak into a round like that, there's nothing to lose, you're in 20th, and you just give it your all, you got the freshest holds, and she really took advantage of it, and it was incredibly impressive to watch. Yeah,
we sort of think that, that coming out first has some kind of disadvantage, and really, when you're talking about 20 climbers in a busy gym, in a warm gym, you have spent the least amount of time in ISO, you get the freshest holds, and the air in the gym is probably the coolest it's going to be for the entire round. So there is not a lot of downsides other than maybe your mental state of coming out first for any of these things. And I think a shining example, when if I can think back to maybe yourself, not very long ago, who you thought you weren't in. I saw you and you had your head down, and then when the results came down, I think you were an attempt, and you were in finals in 6th place, and you basically blew the roof off. So it happens all the time. Just because we're talking about coming out first to 6th doesn't mean that this is the podium. The top 3 climbers are not going to be your podium. We had a few shuffles this morning in the B round. Everybody has a good swing at these boulders, and you can't mail it in when you come into the finals because someone is right behind you.
Yeah, I mean, you're totally right, and the mental aspect of competition climbing is such a huge part of all of it, and it's something that can't be underestimated. If you put these athletes on these boulders with an open-ended time slot and they're all sessioning on them together, chances are they could probably all top at least most of them. So it comes down to the other components, which and the mental thing is huge. And everybody's motivated by different things. On your screen right now you see Guy and Kinder, who I have the pleasure of helping coach here at the Hive climbing gym with Christian Core. They're super motivated by each other, not in a way that's competitive, but if you tell Guy that Kinder did a boulder, he'll do it the next go. Not because he wants to beat his brother, but because he knows that Kinder can do it, which makes it possible in his mind. So all these athletes have different motivations and different things that can cause them to turn on whatever that ultra-competitive or ultra-motivated state is and get them to the top of the boulders.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is, of course, a competitive sport, and you are trying to get on a podium, which means you need to finish ahead of the other climbers. But for most of these athletes, and most of the open-level athletes as well, the real core of the competition is you and the boulders. So other people are also having a them and the boulders competition, which ends up with people having more tops, more attempts, less attempts. But you walk up to every boulder with the intent of sending it, and you don't think about, oh, I lost to this person. You think about the boulders you didn't do. I imagine if you thought back over your competitive career, and I know I could do the same thing, I can remember boulders I didn't top, but I couldn't for the life of you tell me who beat me on that given day.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one thing that's super cool about climbing is you can get into a place where you're really focused on who's winning and who's losing, but at the end of the day, that's not efficient, and if you can't maintain it for very long, it really eats away at your psyche. So if you focus on it being about you and the boulder, the longevity of your climbing career, I think, increases exponentially.
Yeah, and that's something that you learn, and you learn it as a youth climber if you're competing as a youth athlete. And there's a lot. We talked this morning. And if you listen this morning or listen this afternoon, that's fantastic. You will hear some of the same things will come through. We have to think that there are quite a few people that are tuning in just for this afternoon, so we're not going to pretend that we talked about things this morning and never mention them again. That would just be disappointing for those of you. We're not going to hold back from that. But we talk about that development of these athletes over their youth career, and one of the hardest things to develop is understanding what your mental state for competition looks like. And it can take quite a few years till you're comfortable in your own approach to competition climbing. And some people, as you were saying this morning, a couple of climbers, they wear emotions like out in the open, and then you get climbers like Evangelina Briggs, and you have no idea if she is having a good round or a bad round for herself because she just has this absolute curtain, and that works for her. I mean, she won this morning, and I saw her in the parking lot. She was smiling. So she was definitely smiling, but she is stone cold in the round. So you have to be comfortable with the person that you are in competition, and I mean, only change it if it's really, really not working for you. If you're emotional, be emotional. If you're head down, headphones on, and that works for you, you got to be you, but you learn it as a youth climber.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some youth athletes struggle with that, trying to sort of turn who they are as a competitive athlete. Instead of letting it be inspired by other people and other athletes they see, they sort of try to emulate what some of their older compatriots are doing. But I mean, at the end of the day, you got to do what works for you, and unfortunately, it's trial and error. So it's really cool to watch all these guys figure it out. And I mean, they compete a lot, especially the ones that are doing the open circuit. Even if you look at the Youth A category, the top 4 from semifinals for the boys were all from BC, and they've been competing in our open local events and youth events and open nationals all season long. And Brennan Doyle, for example, who's in 4th place in semifinals, is coming with us to the Pan American Championships in like 5 or 6 days. I think we leave next Saturday to go to LA to try to qualify for the last Olympic spot. And here he is competing this weekend right before. So it's a busy schedule, and these athletes, it's a heavy toll that weighs on them. So it's cool to see them all out here and still having fun, even though it's a long season. Yeah,
and it's a long weekend, right? Remember, this is the 3rd day of climbing. So they did qualifiers on Saturday. Semifinals were yesterday. Finals, of course, running today. So you are carrying soreness from 2 days worth of competing. If you yourself climb fairly regularly, have 3 sessions in a row, and have 3 sessions in a row where you have never tried so hard as you are trying in your life in those breaks of time, and see how you feel on the afternoon of that 3rd day. So we are asking a lot of them, and they have been rising to the occasion. This morning we had a really, really wonderful final round for the Youth Bs, and I expect the same thing from the A's and Juniors. What you're seeing right now is the preview of the finals boulders. So they get 2 minutes as a group to preview each of their boulders in the order they'll climb them, and they talk about it. So you see them here, they're miming out the movements, they're discussing, and there's a lot to consider. I'm going to ask you the same question I asked you this morning because I think it's super relevant that people understand the depth that goes on. How much are you figuring out on your own, and how much are you listening, talking, asking, second guessing because of the other competitors and their approach to each boulder?
Well, one thing that's cool about any national championship in Canada, whether it's youth or open, is a lot of these athletes are all friends, and they don't get to see each other all that often. It's cool that we all share the same sport, but if you live in BC and your friend lives in Ontario, you maybe see them, a handful of times a year. So more than anything, I think a lot of them are just enjoying being in each other's company and getting to talk about boulders. And so I think they talk about things a lot, and they don't always talk about moves with the same people. They talk about one boulder, and then they try to get somebody else's opinion. And sometimes you don't know what the beta is going to be exactly until you're on the wall. So it's a good idea to talk to other people and maybe have a couple options. And some people see things that you don't see, and vice versa. It gets a little more complicated on the international stage because not everybody speaks English all the time, so it can be a little bit more challenging in that respect. But for the most part, I feel like people share beta, people talk. And then again, it's also just personal preference. Some people enjoy you previewing a little bit more by themselves. But
so on a really complex boulder, you can maybe suffer from information overload. So when you're talking about a boulder that might have 4 or 5 sequences that are open and available to you, is there a risk of having too much information? And when you step out to the boulder for your time to climb it, you can get a little bit frozen for choice and think, well, man, I know that this person's a smart climber, but that's not what I'm reading right now. I'm going to go with my gut and see how that plays out. But the opportunity to second guess yourself is always there.
Yeah, second guessing yourself is always a risk, but for me, it's always been I want to have as many options as possible and then know that when I get on the wall, I have to commit to one. So I always like having as many ideas as possible in the back of my mind, especially as competition climbing has grown and the sequences have gotten more complicated and setters are getting new tricks up their sleeve to make things more and more complex and cause athletes to lose attempts and spend energy trying to figure things out. So for me, as long as I pick a beta before I get on the wall and commit to it 100%, it's not as much of an information overload risk.
And sometimes your plan B needs a plan C, and sometimes your plan A is the one that takes you to the top of the boulder.
Exactly.
All right, so we got Hugo Dorval, Tula Shurkat, Ruby Tenen, and Phelan Schaefer. And everybody, the first boulder is fresh in your mind from your preview. So they don't waste a lot of time out of their 4 minutes to jump on the wall.
I'm not going to lie to you, Pete. Male junior number 1 and male A number 1 have some kind of mean starting positions to be right out of the gate.
Yep, I am with you on that. They are definitely getting right into it. You've been you're as warm as you're going to be. The preview and the introduction doesn't take long enough that you're not in any risk of cooling down. But the first boulder you walk out to is the one that has to get your nerves out, your jitters.
Yeah, this boulder here that Ruby's on is relatively straightforward. The the footholds are pretty good.
Pretty decent, yeah.
The angle is not very steep, so when we were down here looking at this one, I think in a relative sense, as long as you keep your composure and don't try to rush things, this one doesn't look like it is too bad.
You just got to keep it together, and it's maybe a slower climbing boulder. So if you do make a mistake, you're looking at burning time to get back through your next attempt. So
yeah, and I think if you're looking to switch feet like Ruby is maybe a little bit there, it would be pretty easy to lose your balance quickly and barn door off and then be back on the ground again.
And there's something to be said for a boulder that's doable, but requires you to be engaged the whole way through. There is that part of your brain is like, it's easy. Well, I can't fall off an easy boulder. And maybe you overgrip and maybe your foot get a little bit slidey, and there's lots of little mental tricks. But I tell you, this boulder, this is a burly boulder out the gate for the Youth A climbers. And a good flash from Ruby. Keeping it together.
Yeah, and we have Tula Shurkat on the screen here. It's kind of cool. We have a lot of athletes today who have siblings that are either older or younger that they get to train with and compete with. I know Tula's older brother, Tosh, is still competing on our open circuit, and she gets to train with him a lot and learn from him a lot. So it's cool to have these sibling relationships develop through climbing, and Tula's a great example of how beneficial that can be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Phelan Schaefer on your right, getting through this boulder, which is he got to the zone relatively easily. The beginning climb's a little bit smoother than I think we looked at it as, but the last move here is very off balance. And all the angles in the roof, the shadows don't really help show you, but it sort of closes like a book, and none of the footholds are where you want them to be. 1 minute to go.
We have Tula getting to the zone. These last couple holds are pretty good, but I think it's going to be important for the athletes to make sure they commit 100% to all the moves and get high enough up on them to be able to use the positive part of the hold, as Tula just unfortunately demonstrated.
Like your description of what was happening was 1/2 second ahead of it actually happening. And
I am psychic.
You are psychic. And that was Tula. Just, all you needed there is the slightly higher on that finish hold gets better, and that's maybe the difference between sticking it and not sticking it. But that requires a little more bend in your right arm. It requires a little more spring in your feet. And after 3 or 4 tries at the start of that boulder, you're feeling it.
Yeah, we have Tula back on the wall with about 10 seconds left. I'm not sure that's enough time for her to get to the top.
And having got to the zone, it's just, you're kind of taking a bit of a desperate swing at the boulder. But for some people, they need to feel like they've climbed down to the wire so that they've put in the full effort that they were expecting.
You bet. It's a really hard decision to make as an athlete standing on the ground. At the end of the day, you just want to top these boulders. And so when time's running out and there's maybe a minute left, and deep down you know that that's not quite enough time, it's nice to be hopeful.
Yes, it is. It does. And it changes your mental state a little bit to think, oh, wait, yeah, well, I'll give it one more try. I will give it one more try. And you feel like you've put in a full 4 minutes worth of effort if you do throw that one more try down.
So on the wall now we have Riley Galloway, Hugo Valence, Agatha Farrell, and Ben Agro. Ben really making this look easy at the start here, getting up to the zone just like Phelan did right before him.
Maybe a little bit better footwork here.
Absolutely.
Phelan left his feet low. This might take some of this barn door out.
I know that final volume that he just had his right hand on briefly there is relatively in-cut and relatively good as far as volumes go in this event, but you definitely got to be high up enough on it that you can control the swing, because too much swing on that one and you'll be right out of there.
Yeah, and that's the sort of one of the subtleties of holds like that is that if you're going in complete control, the hold feels really, really good. But as soon as you swing, you come anywhere past vertical, and now you're asking way too much of the contact strength to be able to hold onto a hold that's on that angle and a hold of that angle. So the subtleties come into play not just from the hold, the angle, and how you grab it, but how you let go of the lower half of your body. Where is your momentum taking you, and what is that causing? And on a hold like that, you need to be under and in control, and then it feels really good. And then all of a sudden, bam, it doesn't feel good. And it happens very fast. So you see Agatha here being very careful and not moving as smoothly as Ruby was. And
so hard. It's a total mental battle to be coming out right after somebody clearly flashed a boulder. I'm sure she would be well aware.
Yeah.
Ruby probably came right back into ISO quickly before all 3 other athletes. So although Agatha might not know that it was a flash, she'll know that Ruby did it in relatively few attempts, and it's really hard to be struggling a little bit on a boulder that you know somebody right before you has just done.
Yeah, absolutely. And Riley Galloway.
Riley's super strong. She was in the finals of the Open National Championships last month, and she came in 4th place, and she actually won the semifinal round at that Open National Championships. It was really impressive, topped all 4 boulders. Super excited for her, and super psyched she was able to make her youth category final as well.
Yeah, and I think on watching and remembering her body language after the semifinal yesterday, she didn't have a great round, one top, and I think she was definitely thinking she was out when she finished her semifinal round, and then would have been pretty excited to see the results trickle through afterwards and realize that her one top was enough to get into a final round. And it's you kind of almost feel like now you're bulletproof. You're like, hey, I thought I was out and all was lost, and hey, now I'm in.
Yeah, I think a lot of these athletes were feeling that same emotion.
Good work here from
Here's Riley.
Getting her mitts almost all the way around. And Hugo working.
Yeah, these athletes competing in their local comps and their regional events, I think the boulders might have been a little bit easier at whatever those events were. And so since these athletes are the athletes that are at the top of their youth field, they're used to topping a lot more boulders than 1 or 0 in some cases. And so coming off of the wall after a semifinal round, having topped 1 boulder or no boulders, it's not it's not crazy to think they would have thought they were not going to be in the next round.
Yeah, and that's a conscious decision. That's not a fluke of route setting. That's a conscious decision from the Canadian Federation, brought down to the route setters at the national level events and the regional level events, is to lift the level of climbing. So it's pushing that level of climbing up, and that regionals is going to become for those climbers that are not quite ready to go to nationals yet. And then nationals, the level is going to get ratcheted up a bit, wherein this is a very, very close step. Here, then you have the selection camp, which is preparing you for what Youth Worlds level boulders are going to be looking like. So there is a thought that for a few years running, we were a bit light in the difficulty level of our national level competitions, and our athletes were getting a real unfortunate wake-up call as soon as they left the border to compete somewhere else and went, wait a minute, what? This is way harder than I thought it was supposed to be. So you are going to end up with semifinal rounds with people with no tops, one top. And you look at the Youth A boys down the list, Hugo, no tops, Hugo Valence, no tops, Brennan Doyle, one top. I don't think I've ever seen Brennan Doyle top one boulder in a round. And here they are in finals. So we're opening their eyes a little bit. And that has to be okay. We have to be okay with not everybody topping all the boulders. Competitions are hard.
But speaking of topping boulders, Yinky Ying is getting painstakingly close. Really struggling to get that foot all the way out to the right. I think maybe Ruby is a little bit taller than she is and was able to do it a little bit more easily.
Yeah, she was really working that.
And we haven't really talked about this men's boulder that Brennan Doyle is on there.
It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare.
It is. It's the closest wall we have here at the Hive North Shore to a slab. It's only slab for about the first 2/3 of it, and then it kicks back a little bit again. But our setters at this event have put some of the nastiest holds I've ever seen on that angle, and athletes are yet to get around the corner and make use of those almost non-existent yellow holds.
Yeah, it is nasty over there, and there's some big dudes in this category, and that's a lot of weight to put on your feet on some really terrible holds. And I think that's, you see Matea here getting up into the final move.
She's really got to punch it if she wants to make this last hold stick.
I don't know that this toe hook is necessary.
Trying to toe hook on her own hand there.
Yeah. We did see somebody knee bar on their own knee yesterday, but
I think on that move, the issue there is you really want your feet to go somewhere and to have purchase, but there really isn't anything for your feet. The most in-cut hold is far to the left, and that volume is really slopey. So I think the key for that move is going to be to trust that volume and just commit to the move and hope it sticks.
Yeah, and it is something that you know you need to do it, but you're still looking for something that you think is more clever than using the unfortunately bad foothold that's right where it's supposed to be. You look down and think, I could use that. I don't really want to half campus this, so a lot runs through your mind as soon as you actually get into the body position versus what you previewed as, oh yeah, grab this, grab that, bend my right arm, top of the boulder.
Man Ellis struggling to get back up to the zone again after he did it on his first attempt.
And the top of that boulder is proving to be the shutdown moment. The intro, not as bad as we thought, and the exit, very difficult. We see Inky's going to try something different here other than that, trying to get that right foot stab. Oh, hold good as a static move and not good for holding a swing.
Man Ellis fell, getting to that zone again.
And then Brennan's going to walk away, getting not really past the opening moves. So a little mid-round wake-up call.
Man Ellis is actually the speed athlete rep on the athletes commission with me this year. It's been super cool to work with him and get his insight. He has a lot of good ideas and is really well-spoken. So he's a good advocate for the sport as well as a strong athlete.
Awesome, and that's something that you're new to now this season is the athletes commission.
I am. As of Open Bouldering Nationals, I'm the bouldering athlete rep. And the athletes commission is super cool. Yeah, it's just a way for the athlete voice to be heard, and athletes can reach out and contact us if they have questions or concerns or any sort of feedback, and we can either direct them to somebody who can help them or try to provide insight ourselves. And so yeah, we have an Instagram page if any of our Canadian athletes want to check it out. It's just at cec.athletes.commission. And for bouldering, there's an email address that I have as well if anybody has questions, comments, concerns. It's just cec.boulderrep@gmail.com.
That's awesome, and we want to get that awareness out there because it maybe if it's underused, then we have this resource that's available that we're trying to build, and it's really a really good initiative. And so get on there, tell your friends, tell your kids if parents are watching on the live stream. The Athletes Commission is an opportunity, and I feel that there's the classic question of the classic statement of there's no question that doesn't need to be asked. So don't feel like there's a question you should know the answer to, or I don't want to bother them. You're here to be bothered.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we just want there to be a better line of communication between what's happening at the CEC at the federation level to the athletes, and sort of feel like for the athletes to feel like there's a safe space for them to ask questions and learn more about the sport.
I mean, I think it's amazing. I'm very, very happy for the initiative. I think it's cool that you're a part of it. You've been competing in Canada and on the world stage for a long time, and I think your perspective to anybody that wants to peek in on it is going to be very, very valuable. And as you say, even just a safe space to ask questions and comments, and maybe ask questions about the way coaching or route setting or anything that you want to be a part of. And I think it's great that we do that, and I think it's awesome that you want to give that back to our community. So
yeah, I'm absolutely
good on you.
Really excited to be a part of it.
Sweet.
I'm also really excited that Brielle is getting so high up this boulder.
So good stuff from Brielle Zacharias.
I don't know if you could hear his strong cheering of support from the crowd. Brielle is from Vancouver and trains out of Base 5, so she's got a big local contingent here to cheer her on in the final.
Yep.
As does Kinder and as does Mackie on the wall right now, so we've got a loud crowd at the moment.
Yeah, you're almost all BC right now, Victor Baudron. So somebody...
Kinder McNamee making the first top of junior number 1. Hopefully we can get a replay of that once this round's over.
Yeah, he had 3 or 4 misses of the opening moves, and then all of a sudden, that's what happens. We're watching Victor here try and transition across.
And Pete, that didn't look like much, but I think that might have been the closest we've seen to anybody getting around the corner.
I think you're right.
Good on Victor for that one.
Yeah, and he's thinking, what do I have to do? What did everyone else do? Meanwhile, he's had the most success.
And Victor's younger brother, Oscar, having just won the event this morning for the Youth B category, and I'm sure he's wanting to keep up and try to do the same.
Yeah, and I mean, you see his right hand is way, way, way to the right, and I know that it's probably not comfortable, but I think he does need to make that shift that he's making so that he's not at full extension and then unwinding at full extension, which might be one of the hardest things you can do on a climbing wall, is to get completely extended and then let go of one of your limbs.
I always find it's one thing to be pushing upwards underneath a volume like that, but when the boulder mandates that you push upwards like that and move laterally to the side, it's always so difficult to find the right place to have your feet and your hips and to be pushing in so many directions and pulling at the same time. It's a lot. It's very involved, and it's really hard to do in 4 minutes.
And you don't trust your feet at that point, and things are very sketchy, and it's warm, and you're sweating, and the music is loud, and the lights are bright, and you just come out of ISO, and you really just want to go home sometimes.
Absolutely.
On a boulder like that, sometimes you think, what would be better than this? Not this.
Home.
So we look at Brielle, and then I'm not sure that we had. There we go.
Oh.
Very, very impressive, actually. He stuck that very dynamically.
And like I said, theoretically, coming out now, right after Kinder, we have Zach Richardson. He will have a general idea that Kinder was just able to make that top happen, and so he'll be hungry to do the same. Climbing alongside Zach, we have Megan Bokenfor from the Hive team here in Vancouver, Jackson McDonald, also from Vancouver, Sydney Park from Ontario on the far left.
And this is Zach Richardson is a really, really, really seasoned, very strong competitor. And I mean, I won't say I would expect him to top this boulder, but so far so good.
And just off screen, we have Sydney Park making the first ascent of female #1 for the Youth A.
Yeah, good stuff. Zach still working here, just trying to find the balance point, and just sort of finding a little bit of opposition in there. Sydney.
We have Megan Bokenfour on your screen, gearing up towards the top.
And just getting it right.
That's a flash from Megan. So a flash from Megan and a flash from Sydney. Sydney's top on a boulder that had not been top previously.
Yeah, I just caught it out of the corner of my eye, and she did exactly what needed to be done on the top of that boulder. She just a little bit more bear down and a little bit more careful with the footwork, and that was the difference up there. So about 2 minutes to go.
See what Jackson can do with this boulder that has seen almost no movement for the entire round as of yet.
Yeah. And so this boulder is going to get shared by the juniors as well. So there is a chance that the way some of these are set, look at this.
Jackson McDonald getting closer than we've seen yet.
Makes the transition to the left foot is awful, just for the record. And you can tell by the way his weight is staying on his right hand as much as possible, and starting to get a little shake. Really good look at, you can see how bad that left foot is. And the crimps are, I mean, they're decent, but they're not exactly where you want them to be. Your feet aren't exactly where you want them to be. And that makes everything piled together is what makes the complexity of a technical boulder like this. And that foothold, 6 inches one way or the other, it's a little better to a little worse. This is a walk in the park.
But that was absolutely fantastic from Jackson McDonald. That's by a long shot the farthest we've seen an athlete get yet.
Yeah, and that'll be a useful zone. So if you're unfamiliar with the scoring, it's number of tops of boulders. The next most important piece of the scoring is number of zones on the boulder. And then we do attempts. So how many tries did it take you to get to the tops that you got? And how many tries did it take you to get to the zones that you got? So top zones, attempts to top, attempts to zone. And in a comp like this, every zone matters. Zach Richardson here, just looking to be committed. Manages to hold that swing. Really good core control.
Super impressive work from Zach.
Yeah, and pumped.
Hurting for it a little bit.
Yep.
I use this word a bunch this morning, Pete, but Zach is one of those climbers also that is super methodical when he climbs. He is punchy and he commits to moves, but not before he's really thought about all of the options. You can see him sort of feeling around on this hold, trying to figure out what to do, what the best method is, and yeah, it's super impressive to see. He takes his time, he figures out what he's going to do, and then once he makes that decision, he commits 100%, and it pays off for him a lot of the time.
Yeah, and you see the difference between the climbers that do a boulder in 2 tries. So they fall and make a mistake. You saw him go the first time, and the second time, everything was just a little bit tighter. He didn't make a lot of changes that you could see, but I assure you there were changes in the way he was holding his tension, changes in the way that his feet were on the holds. So he's making those subtle adjustments, and every time you fall off a boulder in a competition, you need to learn something before your next attempt, and that's either do something different, try harder, be better, but you need to learn every time. And Zach, you're right, is one of those climbers that from try 1 to try 2, not a lot of the same mistakes get made.
And here we have Guy, your 2020 Open Bouldering National Champion, trying to answer for Zach Richardson's top here.
Yep, and looking good so far on this flash go. On the right side you've got, so looked a little surprised with how bad that finish hold was.
We've got Paige Boklaschuk now on the dead center of your screen. Paige is also one of those athletes who, while she's still in youth and still competing in junior, she's one of our best open athletes in the country as well, ending up on the podium at Open Bouldering Nationals this year in 3rd.
Yeah, and last year at Open Boulder Nationals too.
Third as well, yeah.
Third as well, so she's been creeping onto the podium.
Yeah, I had the absolute pleasure of traveling with her as part of Team Canada this past season on the bouldering circuit, and she's one of those athletes who is super motivated, really strong, but is always looking for the fun in any event, and she's just the sweetest girl as well. So it's cool when you have athletes that are super strong, super committed to climbing, but are also excellent human beings at the same time.
Yeah, because we're part of a community, right? And once you get to traveling, and once you get to things like going to the selection camps, and if you make a national team, you really lean on your fellow competitors a lot to get through, the difficulties of traveling. And if you're rooming with people who are fun to be around, then you're improving your quality of life in an otherwise difficult situation. Guy going, definitely thinking he would go one-hand control the swing and match that time, but again, just being let down by the contact strength. You see Lily Trache having issues getting around the corner on her first boulder.
Ethan Hoffman off your screen, also getting zone.
Oh, and
that's the first stick of that hold there.
Oh my goodness. So that's a thumb catch onto a sloper to finish that boulder, and I don't know that he rushed it, but he definitely went quicker than I thought he would.
I think unfortunately that boulder is so unrelenting that any sort of speed is really going to kill you. I think even for the finish move, you got to make sure you're maintaining as much composure and control as possible if you want to make that thing stick.
Let's see Paige come through here. So she slipped making the transition where her left hand was on her first go, and she's just weighing up options here. A lot of that toe hook is not very good.
It's interesting, Pete, this morning the Youth B girls were also on this wall, and their finish hold was about where Paige's hands are.
Yeah.
We'll just watch Paige get her done here, and hopefully Guy on the left.
Yes, that is a very impressive hold of that swing.
Showing off his shoulder flexibility a little bit there.
Yeah, and a little bit of bicep.
But that yellow boulder there that the junior girls just finished up, the Youth B girls this morning had their finish hold in about the same place, and I mean, that section of wall is just so hard to navigate. As soon as you get over that lip, your feet suddenly get really bad because they're all of a sudden underneath you, and so you either have to, as Paige demonstrated, squeeze really hard in both of your hands in order to be able to cut feet and move your feet to wherever the footholds are, or you have to have a lot of core tension and be super technical in order to move your feet without holding that release.
You see, that's Guy's first attempt, and then you see here when he just decides to squeeze a little bit harder. Oh no, sorry, that's the next attempt. He took 3 swings at that boulder. Good look at the finish from Paige here. And this now, he deciding that this time is the time. Big smile from Guy McNamee. A very useful top of boulder number 1. So we're moving on to boulder number 2, which for some people will be a boulder we've already seen. So we're going to get about 3 different boulders than what we saw the first time, but we are just going to roll back through the different athletes and age categories are coming back around.
I think every boulder is the same for this round. I think we're just swapping.
We've swapped over.
Youth A and junior switching boulders, so you'll see the opposite age category all take their swing at these boulders. And that slab that you can see on the right of your screen that finish hold is being brushed is the only one that has yet to see a top.
Yeah, and Ethan got the closest and got up into that thumb, but he just was unable to make it stick. We're going to take a minute here while we're doing the transition. Of course, we're in British Columbia, we're in Vancouver, so we do acknowledge this comp is being run on unceded territory for the Coast Salish people, so the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh Nation. So we're deeply grateful to be here on their land and be able to have facilities like this and run events like this. We're here at the Hive. We need to thank MEC, who is the title sponsor of the National Series events last year and this year. They've put a lot of money into the CEC and the system. Flash climbing, capital holds, binary holds, and grizzly holds. And all the volumes, I misspoke earlier. I had mentioned that they were dimension volumes, but in fact all the volumes are made by the Hive here in Vancouver. And then we have Noon, Rhino Skin, Evolve, Arcteryx, Barrier, Body Wash, who's given a bunch of in the athlete bags. And then Prana has provided some prizes for the crowd. And Sport Canada TV putting on the live stream for you. With, of course, the CEC and all the provincial sports organizations. These, we don't get nationals without a lot of people putting in a lot of hours and really caring about what goes on in their sport in their home country.
So here we have Ruby Tenen back out on her second boulder, hoping to emulate what she did on her first boulder and turn it into a flash.
Yep. And you get Tula Surecat on your right. Gonna walk across this ceiling press. So this is good stuff from Ruby. You see, looking for a right foot that doesn't exist.
Like I said earlier, if you commit to that dynamic movement like Sydney did, you really got to get high up on that hold. And I think the higher up you get, the better it's going to feel.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that one. One of my favorite things, and when I coach, I love pointing out to people and that even when you know there isn't a foothold there, people will look down to where they wish there was one. And they'll look back more than once. And that is, you can't get it out of your brain. Your body wants to move in a certain way in order to deal with the movement you've been given. And root setting is, at competition level, is meant to make you feel a little bit uncomfortable a lot of the time. And that means not always getting the footholds that you're looking for. You see Phelan contorting through the middle there to the range. Good. Very prominent. Oh, over.
A long way, I think.
Absolutely. Deuxième place pour les jeunes nationaux. Bon commençons. Il y a une bonne représentation des athlètes du Québec. C'est pas toujours la situation quand les championnats juniors sont à l'autre côté de la pays. Donc, on remercie tous les athlètes du Québec puis Ontario qui viennent au Colombie-Britannique pour cette année. To see that split presentation of Ontario and Ruby now just need to commit that level. You see it slipping even before she applies real pressure to it. Yeah, that's, I mean.
This looks like a last-ditch effort to try to get to the bonus for Tula Surecat.
And Hugo as well. And Phelan is going to walk away with his zone pretty happy. So about 5 seconds to go. Tula's, I mean, gotta go, but not gonna run. Gonna run out of time.
Yeah, that's the second time Tula's sort of been caught right at the start when the whistle goes there. It's just so hard to tell and to pace yourself and to force yourself to rest when all you want to do is get to the top of these things.
Yep. And it's one of those things. It's as you mentioned, and I know we've made a point of saying it, and it's really worth continuing to talk about, is that as you grow as a competitive athlete, you start to rest. And man, it takes some real cojones to fall off a boulder, sit on the mat for 2.5 minutes, and then pull on, knowing that you've got one try to do it, but knowing that rest was more important than 3 tries in between. So you kind of you have to grow into the ability to not throw yourself at a boulder. Your Riley Galloway on your right.
You have a bit of a false start from Agatha there on the left.
Right.
And one thing I know about Riley is she's really good on her feet. So If I was going to make a guess, I would guess that she would do well with this boulder.
So, I mean, the footholds they're decent, but it's awkward.
Yeah, when the footholds are close together like that, like you can see the ones she just left are stacked almost on top of each other, and the next ones are relatively close. You really got to have ankle flexibility and the patience to make sure that you're in the right place before you leave the previous foothold.
Because you end up creating the almost near perfect barn door scenarios by stacking the feet like that.
Really strong work from Riley Galloway to just be able to hold that swing on that half moon hold without her feet on.
That's a pretty big smile.
A bunch of the junior girls struggled to do the same thing
a
few minutes ago.
Good stuff from her. And just the fact that she climbed down a move, that is a very high finish on this point of the wall. So it's
that's actually
unwilling to drop off.
Some of the most consistent comments that I've gotten just talking to these athletes over the weekend is being a little unnerved by how tall the walls are here at the North Shore. We do have very tall walls, and we are grateful for them when it comes to training and getting the volume in and getting these great boulders. But for some of these athletes, they're not used to it, and it can be pretty intimidating.
Yeah, you look up and think, I really don't want to fall from there, and I don't know that I can send this boulder.
Well, if that thought is something that comes into your brain, the options are either to just do it or to back down.
To back down.
One of those options is better than the other.
100%. Back down is the way to go. Oh, you meant top the boulder. Right. You meant top the boulder. Of course.
I mean, to each their own.
We gotta get a look at Hugo Valence here. So he's your squeezing that opposition double bookends there on terrible feet. I do love this move around the corner. You just see the way the climbers stay to the right for so long before they get that match really locked in, and then they manage to shift their weight over to the left-hand side. It is a really, really clever move coming around that corner. I didn't get a ton of success, but the ones we've seen get through it, I really, really like the way that climbs.
Fun fact, if you get any background noise of the sick beats that are playing in the gym right now, that is Hive climbing owner Andrew Coffey DJing from below. He sort of has a hidden identity
as it were.
DJ King B.
That's great.
So it's pretty cool that he comes out and participates and is here and DJing for these events.
Yeah, and it's fun to do that for the gyms that you're a part of, right? This is as close as Hugo got.
My knee hurts just looking at that position.
Goodness, so far dropped. And then you are leaving a volume. There are no footholds on that volume.
It just looked like he had a little bit of a foot pop there. He sort of was getting into the right position and gearing up to go, and then those feet go at the inopportune moments, and
yeah, as soon as you load, sometimes that's the crux almost of a move like that, is you can be in the position, but as soon as you load your feet to make a powerful move, there's so much more friction required, and if the angles aren't right or you're not quite where you need to be, I mean, you come off in a hurry on a foothold slip like that. Well, Man Ellis up into this kind of jump and squish start move. It's coming across.
Man's just going for the bear down method for this boulder, and it so far seems to be working out for him. Just really hanging on to that crimp that he's matching right there for dear life.
Yeah, that's a great look at the careful match, and then you see that you get a really good look there at the angle change, and on your right foot is nowhere near where it needs to be when you're making that push up to the left, and it needs to come away. And you see the climbers, a couple that have just missed that, get close, and then they just start to tip away.
And one thing that I think is cool about comp climbing, and that we talked about a little bit this morning, but is it's really hard sometimes as an athlete to do a boulder, and for a boulder to maybe not go very well and not get the zone or not get the top, and to be able to put that boulder sort of in a mental box and think about it later when you're back at home training with your coach and figure out how you could have done better next time. But there's no use doing that now in the middle of a round. You kind of got to set it aside and look forward towards the next boulder, because it's not over till it's over, and the first boulder doesn't mean a whole lot if you're able to keep it together and do something on the next three.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important to understand that that part of the game is really, really, really critical, especially at a national level, is how do you handle, it's not like losing a race and having to overcome that before next weekend's race. It's like having to overcome a race and then in 5 minutes have to do it again. So as you say, put it in a box, put it away. You have to manage your ability to move past failure that's inescapable. It's right in front of you. I did not do that boulder. I have to climb 3 more times. I've seen climbers that haven't been able to get off the start holds on a boulder and look like they wish they were anywhere else.
Yeah, it's really tough.
And then you've got to be able to reel it in and come back and climb 3 more boulders. And the climbers that are resilient mentally or have good coaching or are finding a way to work through that will find greater success. And
that said, though, if you're a spectator watching from home and you really do care about the results as they were happening, you can find them on compseason.com. That's compseason.com. Just click on Youth Boulder Nationals and all the categories will pop up and you can watch the results change live as they're happening. Because it doesn't matter to you what happens later, and you don't have to put it in a mental box, luckily.
You can lay it out on the coffee table right now. Place your bets, folks. And an interesting segue, I wanted to talk a little bit about, we'll kind of bring it up, and there are no youth C athletes. We see Matea back up here. She was just let down by the sort of ninja kick over to that lone foothold. She tried to keep her feet low that time. It didn't quite work out. There are no UC athletes at Nationals this year. So we have bumped that requirement out of Nationals. And I think it's worth talking about. I think the transparency of the decisions the CEC make are very important. And I know that they're willing to discuss all of the decisions that we make as we go along. And it through the long-term athlete development plan, which has been published on the CEC website, through looking at other sports and talking to experts in various fields, that putting this kind of mental pressure on young athletes is disadvantageous at this age of the UC climbers. So we don't need youth C climbers to have a nationals. We don't have a world championships for them. And it's better for their long-term development to not be exposed to the stress of a national championship at that age. So I think it's an interesting decision. I think that maybe there are some people that might disagree with it, but I think it's worth having the conversation. If you're curious about it, you can talk to the CEC. You can write them and ask them. You can work through it. But they are very sure in the decision they made and the importance of the long-term development of young athletes.
I mean, it's interesting. If you talk to any of our open athletes who are true, not that youth athletes aren't true open athletes, but who have aged out of youth and are only competing in open and who are doing really well. If you talk to Alana Yip, Sean McCall, any of our big heavy hitters at the moment.
Yourself, for example.
You know, we all agree. Like, I'm so grateful to have had competition climbing in my life, but I've seen so many athletes burn out, drop out, do whatever because they started so young and were in such an intense environment so young. And I think it's a great decision.
Yeah, and we need to look after our athletes, and they get regionals is a big-time comp. So you get that, understanding of the infrastructure of how a comp runs over a couple of days, and you can get good comp experience at regionals. Ooh, Brielle getting as close as anybody has, without the exception of Sydney, who topped it. Really good effort there, and lots of time for her to get back up.
And here we have Victor Baudran getting real close to the top as well.
And making that double, that's been the way.
Exciting for Victor. That's the first top of that boulder from this category. It's so close for Mackie, but there is...
Wow, just unable to make that match.
Just over a minute and a half left, which is plenty of time for her to get back up there again.
Yeah, so both her and Brielle coming off the last hold, and you had Kinder getting up into the second to last move. And then this is something that both the McNamee brothers do very well, is control climbing. They are very, very good at wrapping up holds and moving through them. Might as well just chuck up on this. This is going to be a
it's kind of hard to tell on the result on fast. It's a little bit of a like a swoop top. There's a bit and a lot of the athletes are going really low on that hold, so not only is it oriented downwards at that part of the hold, but it is also the bad angle of that top volume hold. And like I was saying before, I think if athletes are just commit to sort of punching it for the top of the hold, it's not only more positive, but it is less steep.
Yeah, 100% right, and it's almost like that they're capable of going full commitment, but are just trying to be almost too careful. And that, I mean, granted, the foothold is terrible, and then here you saw Brielle try and like sort of walk her way up it instead, and then as soon as the right foot lets go, there's nowhere to control the swing. Your right hand just gets worse and worse and worse the farther around the corner you go.
So Sydney Park here on the right, so I to her, round crashed for her, and was on top, so she's done herself to do that on the first boulder, and so far so repeating against that one.
She's looking very composed.
And really fighting for on the left well.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good climb from Park. Academic.
That's a different from Jack McDonald drifting for a left on the start hold instead of either the on the right. Like about him from it, but wasn't quite able to launch.
No, he was screwed on and then called over to just use that crimper.
You can see his face there.
And that's just to start the boulder. This is just to get established far enough over to grab the first real hold, and that is a lot of physical effort.
And you know, Pete, I'm not 100% sure. I don't climb with Zach that often, but if my memory is correct, Zach enjoys when there are holds to grab, and this is not doing him any favors in that case.
In the holds to grab category, Boulder has a big 0.
Big ol' 0.
Then followed by a bunch, but very, very small. Megan.
Not to say I have any doubts about Zach, but he does like when there's grips to grab.
If we're going on things that people like, that's where we're going to end up at. Megan Bokenfour is kind of getting that press through. We've seen a lot of slight variations in how these ladies have chosen to come around this corner, but it takes effort.
Megan really demonstrating her spine flexibility there, the ability to come underneath that volume and have her hips already set up above the volume in front of her. Her back almost emulating the wall change angle is really key when you're coming around volumes like that. Yeah, spine flexibility is something that maybe is not talked about a lot, but is actually quite crucial.
100%, and I would one-up you and call that mobility, full mobility, in that you're able to move through your hips, through your back, through your shoulders, even ankles and wrists. The greater your ability to take on awkward shapes, the more likely you are to be able to apply force as you need to into your hands and feet in weird situations like this one here. And it's not everyone that can bend themselves into that position. And some people climb as though they've got a rod stuck from their neck to their tailbone. And there are times when it really is a disadvantage.
Absolutely, but I say it all the time. I think climbing is amazing because when it matters, but at the end of the day, some boulders suit some people and other ones suit other people, and it's about who can figure out ways around their weaknesses and ways to use their strengths to get through, because not everybody's the same and there's not a consistent type of athlete in a lot of ways for climbing. People are short, people are tall, people are burly, people are more technical. Yeah, it just doesn't matter that much.
No, exactly, and it's about doing what you need to do. So our top qualifiers are out. Paige and Lily for the ladies, Kinder and Ethan, Guy and Ethan on the gentleman's side. And I want to ask you, Austin, from your experience as a competitor and as a current competitor, what do you, when you walk out to preview finals boulders, what do you do when you see a boulder that you know you're going to hate? How do you get past that so not my style, and yet I have to go out and climb it anyway?
You know, I said it this morning, I'll say it again. I am a little bit of a head case when I compete, so it is.
Oh, a flash!
Ethan Hoffman making it look easier than anyone. I would say almost anybody this afternoon. Yeah. But it is really hard to turn around and look at a boulder, and sometimes you do. I would, if it were me and I turned around and saw this yellow boulder that Guy is crawling his way up at the moment, my heart would sink.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you know, I just try to think about the fact that I have as good of a chance as anybody of getting up this boulder, and you never really know what you're going to get and what you're going to enjoy until you actually get on it and actually commit to trying the moves. And it's just sort of an acceptance that you don't really know how a boulder is going to go until you're on it. You know,
right.
Depending on the style, sometimes slab I'm good at, and sometimes I'm not good at slab, and it depends on the movement and it depends on the day, and whether you like it or not, you're going to have to do the boulder, so you might as well be okay with it.
Yeah, you saw Lily pendulum this move about 6 times before making the right foot stick, so a good piece of control from there.
Yeah, some real grit from Lily there, and it paid off for her.
Yeah, and I mean, I like what you say. It's about you have to try the boulder, and if you're despondent about knowing that it's there, and then you're sulking about it in ISO, waiting to have to come back out and climb the boulder you hate, you're not doing yourself any favors, and you don't know. You're like, well, man, why not me? And no one else is going to like it either. Maybe.
Yeah, and like I said, if there was an opt-out button, I think people would use it, but in a lot, you know, you gotta try the boulder.
That would be fun. 5 boulders, everyone gets to opt out of 1.
That would be fun. We should do that.
We should talk about that.
Let's make that happen. We'll talk later.
So Paige came up just a bit short on the swoop that you mentioned earlier. And that move is looking to be very difficult, not sort of difficult. And
it's making Sydney Park's ascent of that boulder look even more and more impressive as athletes one after the other are coming out on this thing and coming up short.
Yeah, and then Sydney just had a little more bend in her elbow and a little more push in her feet.
Yeah, she was jumping like she meant it, for sure, and it paid off.
And that's, I think Paige just needs to warm up the jump muscles and really commit. The first 2, she was, about 80% committed. Needs to just get to 100.
For Guy on the right here, we've got about 40 seconds left to see if we can get an ascent of this boulder. He is our final athlete on the boulder for the rest of the evening.
Yeah, and he looked uncomfortable leaving the zone, as everyone has. So, Paige on your left, and Guy just unable to make the transition. Paige Bachtischuk getting high enough, but not maybe having the accuracy to get into the back of the boulder. She looks a little disappointed. I think maybe she was hoping that would be in her style. But this is a sort of looked at the heel, and you kind of look at how far. And then Lily, when she made that stick, no mistake to the finish. Photographer who has started a company called Rock Digital, and their goal is to be climbing-focused digital media and marketing. And I know they're about to embark with his partner, Kylie Whittle, on a coast-to-coast adventure to go and talk to gyms, facilities, climbing companies about working on their social media presence, working on their exposure with this fairly large goal of getting more attention from larger sponsors. So we have this, we're a very small niche market in Canadian climbing, even at our national level. And if our product doesn't look polished, it's hard to attract sponsors. So if we can get somebody like Philip, and if you go and have a look at the photos from he'll be taking from this event, they do take amazing pictures, and an ability to maybe raise the level of exposure in social media or media presence, attract a few bigger sponsors, and then that wheel just goes around again, but with a little bit more money in it. Now we have something that's even more attractive, that brings in more sponsors, and really the scenario gets better and better. The more sponsors and money, the more want to come on. So we wish them all the best on that. Definitely check out rockdigitalmarketing.com and have a look at their photos from this event. Worth checking out. A couple new boulders for us to look at. A lot of new boulders.
Ruby Tennant is high up on this boulder, 30 seconds into the round.
She is squishing boulders right now. This is really good climbing from her. And we thought this was going to be horrific.
Once Ruby's able to get her other foot up on the volume, she'll essentially be standing. And although those holds are small, it'll be a lot easier to get purchase off of them if she gets her other foot a little bit higher and into a more stable position.
This doesn't look comfortable or stable to you?
No, it doesn't.
Good save from Tula.
And that's a top from Tula Shurkat.
A flash, I believe.
Yeah, with relative ease. Now, we were down on the mats looking at boulders, as we said earlier, and this opening move seems around the angle change. It's a tough move to execute a dyno around an angle change.
Yeah,
there's just so many components at play.
Absolutely, and as you come around the corner, the hold actually gets worse and worse and worse. So if you don't get your foot on right away or make that transition hop to the next hold, you're basically just coming from a hold that is a jug when you're on its left to a hold that's basically terrible as you come around the corner. So a lot going on in that movement. You got to get enough jump to get there, but not so much jump that you just blow right by, and then some coordination. A really nice bit of route setting. And then here, coming out, the steepest part of the wall is just a bit of a kick in the teeth, really. Just keep hanging on to holds. Oh my goodness, Ruby Tennant, I didn't think that bump was going to go.
No, but she really toughed it out and made it work.
I was expecting her to have to make a nasty match, and she managed to punch that out.
Oh, just short for Hugo there. Those big circle holds on the overhang are relatively in cut, but not super in cut. So you really got to be efficient in your movement if you want to have enough energy at the top of this super steep section to be able to clinch that final hold.
Yeah, and it's a lot of arm bending coming out of the bottom of that, and maybe the holds feel pretty good and you don't feel like that much has been taken out of the tank until you see that last move. And Hugo was looking very good through the beginning of the boulder, and then just sort of sagged away at that last hold. So it definitely takes a toll, and especially if you've got 2 or 3 attempts on it, you're going to start feeling it.
That said, though, Hugo is back up for a third attempt at this section.
Yeah.
With about 10 seconds left, a little more.
And you just...
3 attempts on this boulder is a lot. It's a lot of moves. It's a steep section. Every move is strenuous. He did really well to even get back up to that section a third time.
This is an amazing bump. This is a great top. You see her just miss it the first time. Meanwhile, pretty good top from Tula. There are no jibs on that volume, if you're wondering. And then here you see Ruby making an adjustment somewhere, and the contact strength to finish that boulder top notch. None of that looks comfortable.
She really was almost tip to tip there from
Yeah.
her hand on the volume to the finish hold. So good on her for committing to that beta and knowing that she could get it done the second time.
And this is, you see it, I mean, that right leg from Hugo is just rattling away. And that starts to happen when you get a bit tired.
So now back up for the junior category, we have Ben Agro and Agatha Farrell. And for our youth A, we've got Hugo Valence and Riley Galloway.
Let's see.
You know, I gotta say, these junior girls are making that first move on this boulder look a lot easier than I had thought from the ground.
I'm with you on that. I thought we were going to see a lot of pops and misses. Even pulling onto the boulder is a little bit awkward. And yet, they've shown us that they're just happy to maybe have something to get their fingers wrapped around. Oh, you're giving us a crimp. I'll take it.
Riley's doing really well here on the left to be patient with this section. All these holds are pretty in-cut, pretty good actually.
Yeah, decent.
The feet, however, are a little awkward and slopey and bad.
Yeah, and
so
a bit too high in some places, a bit too low in other places.
And it's a lot of moves. So if you are patient, it's going to bode well for you, as Riley is demonstrating here. Hopefully she'll find this toe hook that Tula found on the side of the volume in order to be able to get that second hand up there.
Really nice. She is psyched.
It's a second flash for that boulder.
Yeah.
For this round.
Which is interesting. I think I was thinking the start would give some people a few more fits, but not so far. Oh, really nice. Ben.
Now you see there he was able to keep himself high up in his shoulders, keep his arms a little bit locked. And the shorter the length of your body is when you do dynos like that, the less momentum you have to stop at the end of the swing. So he did a really good job there of being locked in his arms and able to slow himself down enough to stick the second hold.
Yeah, and then the core required is it's not your abs. Your core is from your ankles to your wrists, really. It's the ability to hold and control the whole middle of your body and slow the swings down, swing your legs back and forth with the least amount of extra movement. A really good look at it there, really good control, as you say.
Yeah, and Ben's doing an absolutely textbook job of executing that opening move.
Yeah, going to that left-hand crimp sooner this time, and that proved to be the difference. And a wonderful pop to control the finish. Nice top from Ben Agro.
Yeah, he looked like he was in total control that entire time. None of that seemed to give him all too much grief.
So maybe we found his style.
Yeah, like I said, sometimes the slab, not your style, but more times than not, the final round is not for slab boulders. Thank goodness.
Thank goodness.
So if you're struggling in one section, chances are you can make it up in another.
A good look at the start and what the women have to control to get through the first couple moves here. The feet are really, really low and then really, really high. And that's an interesting transition, is to be from being very stretched out to being very, very compressed. And that'll highlight the difference between something we talked about this morning too, between some of the taller climbers and some of the shorter climbers. They'll have to work harder on one half of the boulder and be happier on the other half. And then reverse that if you're a little bit taller. So Brennan Doyle and Matea coming out for the Youth A climbers as we see Riley's top of boulder number 3.
And for junior, we've got Man Ellis and Yinky Ying.
So this is problems like this third boulder that Man is about to get on with these coordination style jumps. Really, really important to be able to have a coach or route setters at your gym that set boulders like this you don't want to be the only time you try coordination movements to be at nationals. So a big sort of pillar of the training, right? It wouldn't. You'd be disappointed if you thought, and then come to nationals and see what happens. But it definitely helps to be around route setting and be around other climbers that can help you. And I know you've spent some time training with some of the American elite women. What do you think that's done for your bouldering training movement knowledge these last few months?
Like I said, well, I'll answer that question in just a second. We have Brennan Doyle.
Oh, just trying for the long bump.
Not quite.
Not quite.
Yeah, like I said, I think the mental part of competing has always been a struggle for me, and being able to be down in Salt Lake and training with the girls that are on the U.S. national team, more than anything is, I mean, it's a bit of a confidence booster in some ways, just to prove to myself that I can keep up with them and that I can play on the same boulders and yeah. I mean, a lot of my life has been in gyms and hanging out with guys mostly and training with the the strong dudes in the gym, and Salt Lake especially right now has just a ton of really strong competitive athletes that are women, and so it's a really cool environment to be in. Everybody's super supportive, and like you said, a lot of these movements are learned over time, and they have the facilities and the manpower in Salt Lake to be setting these moves so that their athletes can train on, and you know, it's cheesy, but practice does make perfect, and
absolutely.
Like you said, if these moves are foreign to you, you're going to be kind of SOL when you get onto the competitive circuit.
Really strong effort from Man there, just bearing down on that crimp, which is maybe meant to be a bit of a bump. Yeah, and I mean, you make a really interesting point in that there is just by numbers, there is a larger contingent of competitive male climbers in and around the country. So if you are an elite female climber, you are maybe gravitating towards training with the men in your gym, but though they don't climb the same way as you. The bait is different, the styles are different. Man's going to crank it out. One more try here, as is Brennan and Matea. Everybody's given one more Yinky as well. So the opportunity to go and climb with other strong women it's a different level set. You're like, oh my goodness, you get to be around strong, confident climbers who climb the same way as you and have different advice and insight and beta, and you're climbing the same kind of boulders when you get to those World Cup level events. So that is it's really important. I think it's great that you have that opportunity, and you sort of, if other people have that ability, and I think maybe the training camps and the selection camps give the athletes a chance to train with elite climbers in their age category and in their gender, in their gender bubble.
Yeah, well, sort of what I was going to follow that up with is it's kind of the similar effect that's taken here at the national championships. It's all these athletes that, as I said previously, don't get to be together all that often. So even just having the opportunity to be here and to climb together and to share training stories and to work together in a lot of ways is really great.
Yeah. So learn and build. So we are next 4 minutes. We have Michaela Kochi, Victor Baudrin, Kinder McNamee, and Brielle Zacharias. Just for a second there, we thought we'd unplug something important on our side of the live stream, and
classic.
So hopefully,
false alarm.
False alarm. We're good. We're good. So Mackie moving quickly here, as Brielle as well. Getting up into the business on their respective boulders.
Mackie also doing well to be patient with this section and and work her way through it.
Classic hip scum.
Classic hip scum. Bet that didn't feel good with shorts on.
With shorts on a brand new volume. Yeah. Oh, my knee hurts. Brielle Zacharias.
Looks like she's going for the bump that Ruby found as well.
Yep, and she's tall enough. Oh my goodness.
See her when she fell there, just mouth the words, "What?"
Yeah, that's a fairly common. Ooh. Kinder looking poised.
Not quite.
Going for the double and coming up. I mean, just shy, but man, you could miss that by that much 3 times in a row. That just because you missed it by a little, there's no guarantee you're going to roll it in the second time. That's a tough stick at the top of that boulder.
Absolutely, and we see Victor's already been up here. He actually he was going with his right hand to the hold. His left hand is currently on his first attempt and came up a little bit short, but not this time.
So getting a fight. See,
that was
slow down. Yes. On that long time. More pull before the jump.
You don't know.
He looked tired.
I don't know if you've said that enough. But that's about as good. Final 30 seconds. 2 last-minute clutch tops. Doesn't get much better than that.
No, agreed. That is sports action. Definitely worth having another look at Victor's top. Let's see if we can roll that up for you. So here we got Kinder getting established. That was his first try. You see him stay quite low. And then we have Victor in tons of control, and he is psyched. Really, really good composed climbing. And then the difference here with Kinder is how much longer he stays on that right-hand crimp before choosing to jump to the finish and just takes all the momentum out. Something we've talked about more than once. You can control the momentum, you can stay on the bat holds.
We'll see if Jackson can answer for that top here.
Yeah.
Victor doing well to lay down the pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. Zach Richardson on the right on his flash attempt, looking very strong. And this perch move here, the balance, wow. Jackson McDonald in complete control. Where you had Victor holding a cut loose move. We had Jackson keeping that toe hook.
I mean, that looked
easy?
Almost annoyingly easy.
Yeah, I'll give you that. There is a definite level of Sydney Park keeping that left foot to provide a little bit of opposition. Zach taking a little bit longer of a rest. And I think you mentioned that you thought some of these climbers would stop the swing without needing the foot kick on that first move, and just what you saw Zach doing there. A couple of tiny right-hand crimps, and looking a little better this time. Wow.
What a flex from Zach Richardson.
3 fingers.
I don't want to say I told you so, Pete, but that dude likes to hold holds.
He does. And he just got to grab a few in a row.
If there's
no mistakes.
Grips on the boulder, he's going to grab them.
Yeah, that looked really, really good. He is looking like the class of the round right now.
Such control in Zach's movement. It's always super impressive to watch him climb.
Yeah. So 1.5 minutes
And again, we've yet to see a top of this boulder since Ruby Tenen came out first and
smashed it at the start of the round.
Smashed it out of the park once again.
Yeah, she's climbing inspired from 6th place. Really hard. I think you have that moment where one climber makes it look elemental, and then everyone else. So it's really hard. So 30 seconds now. This is probably the last swing for Megan. Just got to get those shoulders turned over while standing on terrible, terrible, terrible footholds. 10 seconds to go. That is going to do it.
That's it for that group. We're sending the last one out. Make it feel love, make it feel warm.
A good look at that. Just the control from Kinder. And
Jack
the same.
McDonald, just, I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah, and then just drags a toe in. All good.
He's like, y'all fell on this?
Why? I don't know why. Really good.
That said, though, next up in that category is Ethan Hoffman, and he has been looking ready to fight this round so far. So I wouldn't be surprised if he laid down a similar performance right about now.
I'm with you. And pretty casually cutting through the footless section at the beginning. And Paige Buckschug also wasting no time to get up into the top holds here. Really good stuff. And then you see Paige going right hand and making the top look fundamentally different than the stress that was put in by the bump of the other 3 climbers who got up that tall.
A little bit of a shrug from Paige when she hit the mats.
Yeah, okay. I guess that's Boulder 3 then. On a flash from Guy McNamee.
And all of a sudden, Lily is the last athlete on the wall.
And that hasn't happened yet across 3 boulders. All right, just Lily Trottier on the wall. Couple of minutes. And she is having some real issues making the transition. Frustration starts to kick in a little bit.
You know, there's something to be said about being the only athlete on the wall.
Yeah.
Kind of sucks.
It does kind of suck. Sometimes it's great because if the crowd is into it and they're behind you, but when you're not sticking holds, you don't really want everyone watching you.
Yeah, when you're struggling, it can make the frustration exponentially worse when, you know, there's this big surge of energy when everybody tops, like we just saw almost all at once, simultaneously, everybody's screaming, and then all of a sudden it's dead quiet, and you
think, oh wow, I would love to have ridden the wave of the cheer, the energy in the room, and yet here I am, just not getting out of the start of the boulder, and it's just a bit of a commitment to the momentum shift at the start of this boulder. And so Lily resilient. It's not over, but we are running out of seconds on the clock for her to make this move work, and just unable to have that right hand work. And I think she's gonna show a little frustration here on her face and just walk straight back to isolation. So that's the third boulder.
Forward here. You need a sweet treat. You make your way.
So we're
Leading the way going into the final boulder is Ethan Hoffman with 2 tops, and 3 zones, followed closely by Victor Baudrin with 2 tops and 2 zones, and then Jackson McDonald with 1 top and 2 zones.
For the Youth A girls, you have Sydney Park with 3 flashes, Riley Galloway with 2 tops and 3 zones, Tula Shurkat with 1 top and 2 zones, and then Lily right behind her with 1 top and 1 zone. So Lily will have given up ground on a podium shot by not getting up on that third boulder. 1 to go though, so there's room on the podium on the junior girls, on the Youth A girls side for sure.
And for the junior boys, leading the pack, we have Guy McNamee, followed really closely by just a couple attempts by his brother, Kinder McNamee. They both have 2 tops and 3 zones. And then hot on their tail is Zach Richardson with 2 tops and 2 zones. That's going to be a tight race there, and leaves a lot of options open for the podium and the color of medal.
Yep. On the junior girls side, you have Paige Bokuschuk with 2 tops and 3 zones. Ruby Tenen, they are neck and neck. 2 tops and 3 zones, same number of attempts. So they are locked up. And then you have Megan Bokenfor, 1 top and 3 zones, and Brielle Zacharias, 1 top and 3 zones. So it is all on the table on the last boulder for the junior girls, actually. And you got Ruby Tenen, who in the semifinals had no tops, and is put herself in a position to stand on the top of the podium based on the results of this last boulder. I think the junior girls are climbing the boulder we just saw. So we've swapped, except for the Youth A girls are on a brand new boulder.
And let me tell you, Pete, I think for the Youth A girls, they saved the most exciting boulder for last. That one does involve a big jump onto the steep wall, and will require some serious courage and commitment from these girls.
Yep, I agree. And we looked at that and we're sure it was going to be a boys boulder just by the nature of the size and the complexity of that jump. And they have thrown the gauntlet down for the Youth A girls and said, oh, you want to jump? We'll make you jump. Here you go. Maybe they were talking early. Maybe they overheard them saying, we didn't get enough big coordination dynos in our round. So they've given them exactly what they asked for.
Yeah, you never know. It could be true.
It could be true. There's a suggestion box. If you've never been to nationals, all the athletes get to put a card in about what they'd like to see in finals.
That would be absolute chaos.
It would be chaos. I'm lying, but it would be hilarious. We have Hugo Dorval getting into the position to get to the zone, and then deciding he didn't want to bend his arms quite that much. And Ruby, I think this is still her first go.
I think so too. Like I was saying early, not only is it an advantage to be patient on this boulder, but it's also a little bit easier to spend a lot of time on this boulder because you can be pressing and get into relatively secure positions and kill a lot of time.
Ooh, and a slip from Ruby. You're holding her wrist there. That's a lot of backwards flexibility. Oh, Tula Shurkat sticking the dyno and just coming off the last move. And here we have Hugo Dorval kind of climbing into that trap of I'm going to go to the zone with my right hand and then the next hole with my left hand because it's easier in the moment, and then all of a sudden the last move becomes nearly impossible. Phelan Schaefer in the jaws of the start of his 4th boulder.
And for this to be the angle for the 4th boulder is a little bit cruel.
Yeah. I mean, someone's got to have it.
These athletes are tired. This boulder is steep. You can just see the strain there in Phelan's face.
A minute to go. It's in your mind, you know you got to try it one more time because it's the 4th boulder, but in your heart, you are just over it. So Ruby and Tula. Ruby knows who she's got breathing down her neck. Nice stick again from Tula. Ruby will be thinking about how important a top is here. Can Tula get established in this weird angle shift? Oh, wow. The finish is as weird as we thought it was going to be. Oh, that tells a story.
10 seconds.
Ruby Tannen, a top is worth so much here.
Oh, that hurt.
Wow, that is as close as you're going to get without topping a block.
Yeah, that was a little hard to watch, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I felt that. And you know that all mistakes leave the door open in a round like this. So this is the nitty-gritty, folks. We're on the last boulder. I mean, it always seems like it's gonna, we're gonna settle in and we're gonna hang out for finals, and then just like that, we have 5 climbers until we're done. So I hope you've been having a good time. And there's still quite a bit of climbing to go. There's still podiums to be decided. And then we're going to do the podiums pretty much right after. We'll leave the stream up. So if you want to see the podiums be given out for all categories, even the Youth B from this morning, we're going to do it all tonight. Then, keep your screen on. We'll tune you into the PA, keep you involved for the podiums. We got Agatha Farrell, Riley Galloway, Hugo Valence, and Ben Agro.
Riley Galloway just about set up to do that big blue jump into the steep section.
She looks really comfortable, doesn't she?
Oh, close.
Yeah. And you learn a little bit. You learn about how far you need to go. You learn about how much momentum you carry, how much harder you have to squeeze to make it stick. Same with the men's boulder here. Every attempt, the swing of your body tells you whether you need to try a little bit harder or whether you need to dial it back, because sometimes you can over dyno.
Yeah, and like I said, it becomes exponentially more complicated when you're going around a corner. You want your hips to be close to the wall, but not too close to the wall so that they run into the angle change, and it's really hard to mediate that while you're in the air. So the release is super important, and that hold that they're going for on the men's boulder feels good until your hips get past it, and then all of a sudden it's bad.
And you're, before you know it, I mean, you're thinking about the next move, and then you're standing on the mat going, what? And almost, if it all happens very fast, sometimes you don't know what adjustment to make for the next time. So you have to be super dialed in to what your body is telling you on every single attempt. Even the moves that feel like throwaway moves, they can spit you off if you're not paying attention. And Ben. So people getting thrown around a little bit here. I think I heard Riley from here let out a pretty good sized squeak. She slowed way down on that attempt, but didn't quite get enough.
Yeah, I think
purchase.
You slow down that much, you know it's possible. I'm sure this next attempt will be
the one
even better.
I'm going to come right out and say it. This is the one. This is Riley making this stick.
Come on, Riley. Prove Pete right. He's not right that often.
Ouch.
And there you go.
And there I go. Looking smooth, but still a minute to go.
You have Agatha really struggling to get any purchase off this body and get underneath it, make those feet stick.
1 minute to go.
Now I think this is the try.
Okay. You see, something you mentioned earlier on the men's boulder about getting a little more bend in your elbow. You see she's basically extended as she does that, and it doesn't leave any slack in the system, and all of a sudden your fingers get shock loaded if you've got a little more bend in your elbows and shoulders, you can absorb the shock of your full body weight coming around the corner. And these are the subtle things that need to happen in order to stick moves of this level of difficulty.
Riley Galloway going for 20 seconds left. Last ditch effort for this zone hold. That time it looked like she just missed the screw on. Gonna try to get it up there again. 8 seconds remaining.
She knows how important the zone is, and that is full effort. Disappointment a little bit from Riley.
Beautiful forward roll at the end.
Really, really nice. I was gonna say, that was a very controlled recovery. Full effort from Riley, like 4 tries in the last 15 seconds. So disappointed not to get a zone there, but full effort is always impressive to watch.
So from left to right coming out, we've got Yankee Ying, Man Ellis, Brennan Doyle, and Matea.
You're just going to let it sit? And
I
Matea.
don't want to get it wrong. I don't like being wrong, Pete. You can give it a go if you'd like.
Vukojevic.
Nailed it.
Oh, a little pop and a miss.
I've actually watched Matea compete for a while. Her parents are pretty involved in the Ontario climbing community, and she's up to be a strong climber, so it's been cool to see her progress from BT9 to being in Youth A category at Nationals.
Great. It is fun if you've been around doing circuit for a while. You get to see the of athletes from 10 to 12 on this stage. It really is fun to watch. I mean, and you yourself came through pretty much the full junior program. When did you start competing?
When I was 10.
When you were 10 years old. So you've run it through, and you are a pretty shining example of somebody that has had success through the junior program and grown and built and had good coaching and been a part of the system, and now are taking a swing at the Pan Ams for a shot to go to the Olympics.
Yeah, it's interesting for me. People assume I was doing really well and winning and, on top of podiums when I was this age, when I was in youth, and when I was competing. Again, it was only rope at that time, but when I was competing in lead and when I was competing in youth, and I did relatively well. I made a couple finals, but I was rarely on that podium, and if I was, it wasn't on the top of it. And I think for me, that's something that has kept me going and has kept me motivated and hungry to be doing better. And it's one of the reasons I'm still here and still around and still fighting to be a better climber and be a better athlete every day.
Yeah, and it's something you learn through the process, right? We are not. You and I were talking a little bit earlier as we just have a pretty good look here at Brennan. Again, left hand. I don't know that that's going to be the way. It's what you want to do from this position, but right hand to that crimp is more important. Not everybody, in fact, the absolute shocking rarity is Sean McCall, which is winning comps at every age category up to the world level from the start of your career through till now. So you don't need to win your way through every age category in every year into open to develop to become somebody that can compete and stand at the top of a podium as an adult. And if you're part of the system and you learn and you grow and you're exposed to coaching and all the things we've talked about over a couple rounds this weekend about how important the mental and development is, and learning how to compete, learning how to be comfortable with yourself, all of that is the building blocks to being a top-end competitor as an adult. And ultimately, we're trying to help athletes come out of the youth system and be successful open-level climbers. And there are some really good examples of it in our Canadian system right now, and we'd love to see some more. And some of them are climbing in front of you today. Absolutely, some of these athletes are going to become open-level competitors with success on a world stage. So, but yeah, have fun. Nice Boulder.
Something that's that I thought she was younger, and my recollection of her is her being really emotional and upset and being really hard on herself. And although it looks sometimes when she's smiling, when she falls, it's sort of forced, but it looks like she's had some sort of coaching that has helped her to see the fun in things and to be. And just like that, 3 athletes remain.
Yep.
So coming out from left to right, we've got Brielle, Kinder, Victor, and Mackie all gearing up to go on their final boulder of the weekend.
Mackie up into the press right away. And as Kinder studies the complexities of the overhang.
Mackie lining it up.
So a tentative jump to test the distance. You got to take one. You got to take one to check the fall. You got to see what you feel like.
Although she didn't actually touch the zone hold, she was relatively high up on it, and that to me looked like a promising first effort.
I will agree with you. She was up with room instead of sort of low and reaching. An important distinction. Wow. So we'll get back to that. Kinder flashes his boulder while we're watching.
Like I said, power of the thumbs.
Yeah. Victor and Brielle on your screen right now, both staring down the finishes.
Victor doing a good job of staying patient on this boulder and trying to figure out what he wants to do here. Also a little bit partial to that left hand, just like Brennan was, and kind of climbing himself into a bit of a dead end.
And it's funny to think that zone hold is a quote-unquote the good hold in that pairing, but it absolutely is.
Mackie opting to try a foot stab there instead of going left hand to the zone hold.
Oh, and then Brielle, after having shown a ton of patience, rushed the last move there. I don't know if she was slipping. I don't know if she was running out of gas, but she climbed very, very patiently up the first 3/4 of the boulder and then sort of dead pointed for the finish and came up a little bit shy. So there's
Mackie's really committed to holding the swing on the first hold of this dyno, and she's getting relatively close to holding it just on that first hold, but at the top of her swing, she just loses it at the last minute.
And there's Brielle with the zone here has put herself in a position to stay on a podium, but a top here will be critical. She's got Megan Bokenfour coming along behind her. So this is a top required, I think, here for Brielle to stay on the podium.
See if Victor can figure out how to get his right hand where his left hand is.
Oh my goodness, or just do that. He looks relieved.
Yeah, I award that top maximum style points.
Yes. That was, I mean, just sort of a float.
Yeah, I mean, that was a good example of picking a beta and committing to it 100%, because just because it's not what the route setter's intended doesn't mean that it doesn't go. And at the end of the day, you know what your strengths are, you know what you're capable of. When you're up there, you know, Victor's the best judge, far better than we are, of what's possible and what's not, and he did a good job there of committing to a beta, sticking to it, and making it work.
Yeah, and knowing, looking at that hold and going, I've grabbed that hold on this angle, I'm sure I can stick it. You see, yeah, what point you mentioned is that Mackie 100% committed to not paddling over to the zone and just holding the swing. And that, as the clock ran out, I mean, that looked like she would have been able to stick that after a couple of tries. So that'll something for her to chew on a little bit while she wanders back to her chair. So this is a real nice look here at the first try and the full effort from Vic.
I mean, that was smooth like butter, Pete.
And the right foot, it might look like it was an afterthought, but that right foot sort of sliding over probably was the difference of him staying on that with his left hand.
You bet it was.
Really nice piece of climbing from Vic Boulder.
Jackson once again making these opening moves look really easy. We got Zach Richardson up high on his boulder as well.
There we go.
Jackson being really patient on the top of his final boulder of the night.
Ooh, Zach sort of reversing a move. Wow, and Jackson very, very poised climbing through the top quarter of that boulder. That looked really good. And Zach looked like he maybe underestimated the amount of tension required to finish that boulder. That's not in his habit to not do powerful moves. So we'll see if he ratchets it up the power level a little bit on his second attempt.
He actually has one attempt, it looks like to me, in order to be in contention for first place. Kinder McNamee has 3 tops, 4 zones. Oh, actually, no.
He's got a couple of
He's
tries.
got a few. He's got 3 or so.
Yeah, a couple of tries to put him in up on for now.
But with how close he and Guy McNamee are at the moment,
you don't want to waste any tries. This is, Zach's climbing this boulder thinking, I bet you Guy can do this first try. So now you add a little bit of pressure. You think, well, I better do it second try. And now you've applied a little bit of stress to yourself of, oh my goodness, now it's basically do or die on my second try because I'm worried about the ability of Guy McNamee, who I absolutely know has the capability to do this boulder.
Yeah, so he has 3 tries to move into a provisional first over Kinder. But preferably he'd like to do it in less than 3 tries.
Yeah.
Because he does know that Guy is hot on his tails.
Yeah, and a good stick here. Sydney.
With a top here, I believe Sydney Park will seal the victory. She is 1 entire boulder ahead of her
nearest competitors.
Competitors, yeah.
And the finish is not easy.
Yeah, we saw Tula here before, wasn't able to quite get herself into a position to be able to match. Tula didn't try the more pressy method that Sydney is looking for at the moment.
And looking is the right word. I think that's about 10 hand adjustments already. And then not able to find the body position required. Megan Bokenfour can get herself on the podium with a top here.
She really needs this zone though, Pete.
Yeah, that too.
And with 20 seconds left, I don't know if it's going to be enough time to get her back up there, but it is plenty of time for Zach Richardson.
Oh my, did not think he was going to hold that. He's got to do something with his feet. No, he's got it. He let the clock wind down. He took the long rest. What do you think? Is that a top?
I believe that's a top from Zach.
I think that's a top. The sort of first 2 leg swings, no, but by the time he was coming back under, I think he had that under control. That's a pretty critical top from Zach.
Yeah, huge sigh of relief from Zach, I bet. That was, that was pretty clutch.
Everyone's in their spots. We got thumbs up, and here we go.
So, Paige, on your far left, Guy McNamee, Ethan Hoffman, Lily Trottier. Guy needs to top.
So actually, the scores are updating quicker than I thought on comp season. Kinder has 1 more zone than Zach does because of the slab boulder at the start.
Oh, yes.
That zone had already been updated in comp season. So while that was a very impressive top from Zach Richardson, it actually only moved him into second place. Kinder is still in the provisional first, and he can be unseated by his twin brother Guy with the top of this boulder.
Right, and we got on your left, Paige Buckleschuk, who is a top to win. A zone will, at this point, only a zone will put her just behind Ruby Tenen on attempts. So a top will seal it for Paige here on her last boulder of the night. And she is looking well situated to do just that. Meanwhile, Ethan Hoffman with the top. Paige getting on that one hand in. And just like that, so Paige is secured a win here.
And Ethan Hoffman also secured a win for himself with that top.
And at stake here for Lily Trottier is a podium spot. So a top here puts her in third. A zone is not quite going to do it. So Lily Trottier climbing for third place. 2 minutes to go, and Guy with an unexpected ejection from this boulder. Not looking really comfortable in the opening moves, and maybe that extra tension is taking its toll in the top half of the boulder.
Looked like he was trying to get into a position to chalk up there on that zone hold, but
changed his mind.
Last second decision change.
You know, as maybe you would. I don't remember the last time I chalked up in the middle of a little roll of the eyes from Guy McNamee. I don't know if that's fatigue driving that, or whether he shorted himself, whether he thinks he made a mistake, or whether he's just doesn't have enough gas in the tank to make that really quite powerful move.
The time is ticking dangerously close to 1 minute remaining for Guy McNamee, and this top is more important than any so far in the competition.
Yeah, absolutely. 1 minute.
This is it, people. It all comes down to this. Show them your support.
Oh.
So close from Lily.
She's going to take it down to the end, of course. We'll see a few more tries, and this will probably be Guy's last. This boulder climb's a little slower.
Now Guy is looking tired, but
he is resilient. He has
I
that.
have learned to not question what he is capable of.
Even tired.
Even tired.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Let us know you're there, people.
He's got to know how important this is.
Let's scream, let's shout.
And I mean, he did top the fourth boulder at Open Nationals sort of out of the ashes on his last attempt, looking gassed, but you see there, that's everything that Guy has to give.
And with when that fall there, Guy hands the junior men's bouldering national title over to his twin brother, Kinder.
Just like that. And Lily Trottier there unable to secure the zone. So on your Youth A girls, you are going to have Sydney Park taking home the win with 3 tops. Riley Galloway is going to be your second place athlete with 2 tops and 3 zones. Tula Sherkat is going to bring up third place on the podium, 1 top and 3 zones. Junior girls side, your winner is going to be Paige Buckless-Chuck, 3 tops and 4 zones, edging out Ruby Tenen, who was unable to get a top on the last boulder. She ended up with 2 tops and 4 zones. And Brielle Zacharias, 1 zone ahead of Megan Bokenfour, 1 top and 4. Brielle takes in third place.
And right now on comp season, the results for the Youth A boys are showing Ethan Hoffman in first place with 3 tops and 4 zones. Victor Baudran with 3 tops and 3 zones coming in second. And in third place, Jackson McDonald with 2 tops and 3 zones. And for the junior boys, first place, Kinder McNamee with 4 tops and 4 zones, or 3 tops and 4 zones, excuse me. Zach Richardson, second place, 3 tops and 3 zones. And Guy McNamee with 2 tops and 4 zones in third.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for the climbing at the 2020 Youth Bouldering National Championships. I have had a great time hanging out with you guys this weekend. I had a good time hanging out with Andrew Funk yesterday during the semifinals. Allison Best, I had a wonderful time hanging out with you on the live stream today.
Always
your
a pleasure, Pete.
Your knowledge of the sport, your knowledge of the current state of youth climbing and open level climbing is a real benefit, and I'm happy you were able to bring that to our show today. Ladies and gentlemen, follow along. We got a couple of athletes going to the Pan Ams. You have Jason Hollowatch, you have Alana Yip, and you have Allison Vest sitting right here. They are going down next weekend to take a swing at a title at the Pan Ams for a chance to go to the Olympics. Allison, I'm excited for you to have a good comp down there. I hope it goes really well for you. I hope your speed climbing is good. How is your speed climbing?
It's,
It exists.
I'm going to try my very best, Pete,
Yes.
and that is all I can promise you.
Yes, I know, and I would be horrified as an open level athlete who's never speed climbed to, in about a year's worth of effort, try and put myself in a position to compete with speed as a point-getting event. So all respect to all the athletes, you guys who are choosing to go and put your hat in the ring for the combined event. It's really impressive that you're putting yourself way out of your comfort zone, and I think it's really, really cool, and I wish you the best of luck in that endeavor.
Yeah, thank you. In all honesty, I've really enjoyed it. Speed is super fun. Yeah, it seems less fun maybe from a distance when you haven't tried it yet, but yeah, I've been having a great time, and I'm excited to head down there with a pretty strong contingent. So cross our fingers, see what happens, and yeah, just try to enjoy every minute of it.
Yeah, and really good luck to you being part of the CEC, the Athletes Commission. I think it's really important that we have that forum for people to reach out and be a part of. I think there's a lot of really interesting things that have been happening in climbing recently. If there's something that I talked a little bit last year at Lead and Speed Nash was the big initiative. So that's an initiative started by a few gym owners and route setters across the country, bring in the girls, and that's to try and expose female climbers to more opportunities in route setting, more opportunities in training, more opportunities in climbing with other women, giving them a different forum to go and express themselves in climbing. And I think that is a wonderful, wonderful initiative. And it's important that we take everybody that's trying to build up corners and aspects of climbing that are really important. I know in Montreal they have a group that brings disadvantaged kids together and they go out climbing, and it gives them an outlet to try something new. And climbing is a really beautiful community that I've been a part of for a huge part of my adult life, and it's really cemented some wonderful, strong friendships, and I've met some really good people, and it's something that is worth hanging on to, and it's worth fighting for, and it's worth improving. So you're a part of that process, and I think it's really, really important that you're putting in that level of effort and that people have an ability to give back. And you guys watching at home, right, tuning into a live stream and allowing us to show future broadcasts and future opportunities for advertising to say, look, we can get a couple of thousand people watching a broadcast. You know, the Lock Shop Open, 25, 30,000 views. So big comps, Canadian, we're getting there. And it's important that everybody wants to stay involved, and it's really, really cool. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Having a great time, and I'm, yeah, as always, super honored to be a part of all of it. And there's a lot of cool stuff happening in Canada and in comp climbing right now, and I'm excited to see where it all goes.
Yeah, it's, I think, going in good direction. And we're just off the corner of my screen. I just watched the route setters all huddling in the corner, putting their hands up. A really fantastic job. You need to put lots of respect into the hands of the route setters. Simon Parton, Oscar Lanzagorta Sanchez, Eugene Kosciuszko, Tristan Plowman, Allison Stewart-Patterson, Sophie Butendijk, Hayden Jones, Andreas Lurch. That crew worked really, really hard. Setting youth nationals is a huge effort. 7 days of route setting, more than 50 boulders, tired, and still put together really, really, really good boulders that we got to watch the show on as it unfolded over the course of the weekend.
Yeah, all these rounds are super exciting. I think they, I don't know if it could have gone better. I mean, there was, I think, one boulder across all the finals that did not get any tops, that heinous crimp slab, but
but it was close too.
But it was really close, and yeah, they did a fantastic job, and I hope they're really happy with how it went, because it was a great show, and yeah, they did a phenomenal job.
They absolutely did. So these climbers are now have earned their way into the selection camp. So they will invite the top climbers from each category from this event to the selection camp, at which they will climb again, and they will get rescored against each other in an environment where the boulders will get even harder, approaching the world level. And then they are gunning to be on the national team for the Youth World Championships. That is going to be in Russia near the end of August. So the 23rd to 31st of August this year, something to strive for, and that's what these guys are coming out swinging, trying to get a part of. And as a youth climber, the Youth World Championships is that is the pinnacle.
Yeah,
that's your thing.
And I think in past years it's been easy for some of our climbers to just have a goal of getting to the World Championships and that being it, but it's changing a lot, and a lot of these athletes have the potential. You can see Oscar there, our Youth B winner, trying these boulders with his street shoes on, but these athletes have all these big goals now at the world level, and they're wanting to do well at that World Championships, and they're putting out the results to show for it. And so it's really exciting to see these young guys dreaming big and getting really close to realizing those dreams and representing Canada remarkably well at that international stage.
Yeah, and what you get after this year's Olympics, we're taking speed back out of the equation. 2024, there's one medal for boulder and lead combined and speed separately. So the athletes that climbed this weekend are going to be some of your youth athletes that are going to be in a position to be competing for the Olympics in 2024, especially off that top end. The junior athletes will be, if they're given the opportunity and they're able to up their game and put a few World Cups down, and maybe we're going to have a couple of people who will just explode and shine on the world stage. You get the opportunity and you really show what you're capable of. I mean, you've climbed at a couple World Cups, and it is a whole new world out there once you get out of even the North American level of climbing. And I mean, the dial goes to 11, right? You think you've climbed hard boulders until you climb a World Cup. And what was your first experience getting to go and do that level of competition, and what does that do for your confidence or your drive to want to come back and train harder and make it work?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword because, like you said, the boulders are really hard, and they're a lot harder than we're used to in Canada, but they're also a lot different in a lot of ways. The difficulty comes from different places, from things being precarious, from footholds being really bad, from competing in China and it being 40 degrees and almost 100% humidity.
Holds you've never seen before. Food you didn't know you had to eat.
Exactly. There's so many other components that come into play. But at the same time, something that I think Alana does really well and something that's really hard is going to those comps and knowing that you've done the training and that the boulders are possible. I think there's sort of the opposite end to that as well, as athletes go into these comps and think, I'm just at this World Cup, I'm going to try my best and we'll see what happens. But I think it's also important to realize that you do have the potential to top these boulders, to make the next round, and they're hard, but that's okay that they're hard, and to know that you belong in that round and that you can make something happen.
And the boulders are doable. And I was talking to Andrew Wilson, who is the heavily involved in the development in the CEC and making a lot of decisions about how we're running our competitive climbing. And something they tried last year was that you qualified for not every World Cup. You got to go to, I think it was 2 or 3 at the beginning of the season. And if your results were good, if you hit a certain level that we ascribe to success that you needed to meet, you got to go to the next half of the season. So it wasn't that, hey, you're in and just see what happens. The idea was to keep the climbers hungry to do well at those first couple of World Cups and then earn their way into the second half of the season. So that was something that, something they tried, and seems to have worked relatively well. A couple climbers did climb well on the first half of the season and earn their way in. Alana, Jay, I can't remember how you did. Didn't. I mean, it's too many details. I can't remember one or the other. Didn't do it. But they were given an opportunity to say, hey, if you climb really well, you can do the second half of the World Cup season. So we are getting there. We are a big country. It's hard to compete best against the best. All that often we do have the training camps, and we're trying to build the level up. And I truly believe we're going to get there. We've been working on it for a long time. So It's a good time, and it starts here with the youth climbers, and it starts with people supporting the process and the system. You guys, I know a bunch of people drop off on the live stream as soon as the last buzzer hits zeros. The views go from 1,000 to 27, and mostly parents and grandparents of the kids that are about to stand on the podium.
Hello to all 27 of you.
Hello to everybody still on. We are we're just sort of I think it's worth talking about some of the things that are going on in the sport right now, and this is a really easy time for us to do it. That we don't have to go back and focus on any of the climbing. And as soon as the podiums are ready, we'll flip back over and get you to there. But instead of having some dead air, I think it's a good chance for us to talk about the state of affairs in Canadian climbing. And hopefully you've enjoyed the quality of the broadcast. The last couple of years, we've had Sport Canada TV bring production-level equipment to nationals. And I mean, I did nationals in Edmonton a handful of years ago on static security cameras and Facebook Live. So we've come a fairly long way in a fairly short amount of time, and it needs to be something that we continue to build on. So we're trying to bring you a really professional level of experience and make it really enjoyable to watch and give you a good quality stream and the opportunity to get involved in the sport. The next one is going to be Lead and Speed Nationals. That's also going to be in Vancouver I'm going to get the date wrong, but it's in April. It's going to be in Richmond on a brand new wall being built at the Richmond Oval. So that's going to be pretty cool, a chance for you to see what some of the same athletes here are capable of doing on a rope. And are you going to be climbing on ropes at Nationals?
I don't know yet.
You don't know yet. So time to decide.
Maybe.
See how it goes. Maybe see how it goes.
Maybe I should.
Maybe you should. I always think you should.
Okay.
I'll
do whatever you say.
do whatever you say. All right, so you heard it right here. Alison Vest has agreed to go to Lead and Speed Nationals and climb on a rope. It's really just a really big long boulder problem.
Yeah.
We're going to run down the sponsor list. Flash climbing, huge part of this event. Official chalk sponsored goodies and things like that. And then MEC, who has been a partner of the CEC over the entire series, a really major partner to Canadian climbing over the last couple seasons. And then you have Capital Holds, Binary Holds, and Grizzly Holds. Noon, Rhino Skin, Evolve, Arc'teryx, Barrier Body Wash, and Prana, all part of the event as well. This doesn't happen without an unbelievable amount of volunteers. So all the volunteers and the staff at the Hive, of course, the CEC, who provided the jury president, the organization behind this. And we have Jenny May, who's the comp organizer. This is her first time running a major comp, and things ran very, very, very smooth over the course of the weekend. And David Arrigo, who was the volunteer coordinator. And I think we would be remiss as we get ready for the podiums not to mention that the T-shirt design for the athletes was done by somebody by the name of Alison Vest. I didn't know you could draw.
I didn't know I could either. I just tried it and, whoa, that was horrible.
Feedback.
But that was a hilarious video shot.
It's going to be that might need to turn into
yeah, we got to find that.
A little a repeatable loop. I think I'm going to
a GIF.
A GIF that'll be worthwhile. That was not our fault. We have nothing to do with the feedback in the room, so you can't blame us. Allison, you drew a design and then ended up on the shirts. That's really cool.
Yeah, I did. It's weird and cool and yep.
And I'm proud to say that my wingspan on the Alison Vest measurement at the Hive here was really close.
Yeah, people think that's a joke.
I know.
People come up to me and they're like, it's funny they put your wingspan so far away. And I say, yeah, it's funny, but also real.
It's true. I am an albatross.
Also, it's my life.
Yeah. I cannot find shirts that fit.
Thanks for making fun of me.
Thanks for making fun of me for being really lanky. Yeah. It's it is a funny thing I didn't notice. I don't think it was here the last time I was at this gym, and I walked in and I had a bit of a laugh at A, that it exists, and then B, of course, that people forget how long of a wingspan you have. And it's funny but worth mentioning that we go through, we talked all weekend about tall, short, sort of mature, not mature, coming through muscles and coming through puberty as an athlete and a climber, and we talk about how important all these things are. I would rather have a longer wingspan than be any taller. Reach trumps height for me almost every time.
Yeah, I think the thing is, for me, so for people who don't know, I'm 5'6", so I'm not that tall, but I'm not necessarily short either. but my wingspan is 6'1", so I'm plus 7 inches or something. And it is useful a lot of the time, but as soon as my feet come out from underneath me and I really got to pull or lock off or do something statically, it really sucks. Like the levers and the amount of force on your joints is just all out of proportion. So like I said, I mean, I think I would agree with you. I don't know what it's like to be if I was 6'1" and had a 6'1" reach, but again, I think people just deal with what they got, and sometimes I want to say that for a lot of people the grass is always greener on the other side. If you've got short arms, you're like, I wish I had really long ones, and then you have long ones and you know what that's like, so you wish you were doing something else. But
I think you're absolutely right about that, actually, is everybody just points at the person that just did a boulder they couldn't do and be like, see, it's because you're tall, short. Who knows?
I don't fit in that box. That's why I couldn't do that.
It would be impossible for me to consider that was something I could do. And then you make yourself feel a whole lot better about your exposure on a boulder problem. I think they're basically ready to run the podiums. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us. If you watched the semi, if you tuned into the qualifiers, and if you watched today. So thanks, everybody. You guys help show that this is something that we can continue and that we get a lot of viewership. And we're going to throw you over the podiums. 2020 Youth Boulder Nationals. Pete Woods, Allison Vest.
Thanks for hanging out.
Thanks for hanging out. You took my line. We're going to kick over to the podiums. Thanks, guys.
3 days. We're going to hand out awards to individuals and so on. And we're going to say thanks to a number of organizations. I want to say on behalf of all of us here, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much to all of the athletes for giving us an amazing 3 days. Amazing show over the last 3 days. All of you continue to just amaze and astonish me every single time you're on the wall. Okay, down to the awards. As the technical delegate of the CEC, it's my pleasure to thank Sport Canada, MEC, Flashed, and in particular our event sponsor, the Hive. Thank you so much. Josh?
Also like to thank all the rest of our sponsors, Flashed, MEC here, official chalk sponsors and goodies. We got all the hold sponsors, Driftless, Binary, and Grizzly. We want to be thanking Noon, Rhino Skin, Evolve, Arc'teryx, Barrier Body Wash, and Prana, and also the Maya Mayo Detox for keeping you guys all suited and ready to go. Round of applause for all our sponsors. Of course, we always want to say thank you one more time to all the volunteers, everyone that helped out. Round of applause for all of them. Everyone that made all of these routes possible. You might hate them, I don't know. But we want to thank Simon and Oscar for leading, and the support crew of Andreas, Allison, Sophie, Hayden, and Tristan. Big shout out to the CEC for helping everybody out. Huge shout out to Jenny May over here for making all this possible. David Arrigo, our volunteer coordinator. And once again, athlete t-shirt designs by Allison Vest. Now, I'm going to hand it over to Kat. She's going to hand out some much-deserved awards.
Bonjour tout le monde. Hi, everyone. I'm sure these full climbers are ready for their medals, so without further ado, we will start with Youth B Girls, les filles juvéniles B. En troisième place, in third place, from Ontario, Jacqueline Ho. In second place, from Alberta, Elsa Vanier. From Ontario, Angelina Biggs. for youth boys, Garçon Généré, from Ontario, Emmanuel Derima. Unfortunately, Emmanuel had to leave catch his flight, so congratulations, Emmanuel. En place, in second place, Quebec, Billy Lee. Champion B, or you can from BC, Oscar Baudran. J'ai là, youth en poste, from BC, le chat. Et 7th place en deuxième position, from Ontario, Billy Galloway. And our winner, notre gagnante, from Ontario, Sydney Park. Garçon juvénile A, Youth A, from BC, in third place, Jackson McDonald. BC, in second place, Victor Audran. Youth A champion, the juvénile A, also BC, Hoffman. Filles juniors, junior girls, en troisième position, in third place, Brielle Zares. In second place, from Ontario, Ruby Tenen. Eighth place, our champion, notre championne en première position de l'Alberta, from Alberta, Paige Bucklischuk. Podium et non moindre, our final podium. Des juniors, en position, place from Québec. And our junior champion for 2020, notre champion junior 2020, from BC.